My name is Emma, and for 12 years I believed I had a happy marriage. Not a perfect one, but a real one. My husband David and I lived in a quiet suburb outside Chicago. We had a beautiful home, 2 dogs, steady careers, and what I thought was a relationship built on trust. Looking back now, I realize trust is a dangerous thing when it's given to the wrong person. It makes you blind to the signs you should have seen all along. David worked as a regional sales manager for a manufacturing company. His job required frequent travel. Sometimes he was gone for 2 or 3 days, sometimes an entire week. In the beginning, I missed him terribly when he traveled. I would count the days until he came home. Over time, I got used to it. It became our normal. He would leave with a suitcase, call me every evening, bring me small gifts from different cities, and return home acting like the loving husband I thought I knew. I trusted him completely. That trust would eventually become the biggest mistake of my life. The first crack appeared on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was working from home when David called unexpectedly. He sounded rushed and distracted. "Emma, I think I left my blue folder in my office. Can you check my desk?" "Sure," I replied. I walked upstairs into his home office and began searching. The folder wasn't there, but while opening a desk drawer I found something unusual. A birthday card. At first, I thought nothing of it. Then I noticed the handwriting. It wasn't addressed to me. The front read, "To the world's best dad." I froze. Dad? We didn't have children. For several seconds I simply stared at the card, convinced there had to be an explanation. Maybe it belonged to a coworker. Maybe someone had accidentally given it to him. Then I opened it. Inside, written in colorful marker, were the words, "Happy birthday, Daddy. Love, Olivia." My heart skipped. There was also a drawing. A little girl holding hands with a man. The man had brown hair, just like David. I immediately felt ridiculous for jumping to conclusions. Thousands of men had brown hair. Thousands of little girls drew stick figures. But something felt wrong, very wrong. I slid the card back into the drawer before David came home. That evening, I casually asked him if anyone at work had children named Olivia. His reaction lasted less than a second, but I noticed it. A flash of panic. Then it disappeared. "Not that I know of," he answered. I smiled. "Just curious." That night I barely slept. The next morning I returned to his office while he was showering. I opened the same drawer. The birthday card was gone. I stood there staring at the empty space. David had removed it, which meant he knew exactly what card I was talking about. And he didn't want me seeing it again. For the first time in 12 years, I felt suspicion enter my marriage. I hated the feeling. But once suspicion arrives, it never leaves quietly. Over the next few weeks, I started paying attention. Little things. David became protective of his phone. He started taking calls outside. He smiled at messages he never explained. His travel schedule increased dramatically, and every time I asked questions, his answers felt rehearsed. One Friday evening he returned from what he claimed was a conference in Milwaukee. As he unpacked his suitcase, a small stuffed unicorn fell onto the floor. He picked it up so quickly you would have thought it was made of gold. I stared at it. "What's that?" He forced a laugh. "Client gift bag." "A unicorn?" "Some family event." The explanation sounded ridiculous. Even he knew it, but he stuck to it. That night, while David slept beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong. A week later, everything changed. I was cleaning the kitchen when an unknown woman called my phone. Normally, I ignore unknown numbers. For some reason, I answered. "Hello?" There was silence. Then a woman's voice. "Are you Emma?" "Yes." Another pause. The woman sounded nervous. "I'm sorry to call you like this." My stomach tightened. "Who is this?" She inhaled deeply. My name is Sarah. I had never heard the name before. Okay. What she said next shattered my world. I think we're married to the same man. For several seconds I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, couldn't think. The room spun around me. What? The word barely escaped my mouth. The woman sounded like she was crying now. His name is David Carter, right? My knees nearly gave out. I grabbed the kitchen counter to keep myself standing. Yes. Silence. Then she whispered the sentence that destroyed everything I thought I knew. He's been my husband for 5 years. Sarah and I met the next morning at a small coffee shop 30 minutes from my house. I barely slept the night before. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her words again. I think we're married to the same man. I arrived early and chose a table in the corner. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Part of me still hoped this was some terrible misunderstanding. Maybe she had the wrong David. Maybe it was a scam. Maybe there was some explanation that would make everything make sense again. Then Sarah walked through the door, and all those hopes disappeared instantly. She looked exhausted, mid-30s, blonde hair tied back in a loose ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. She carried a folder so thick it immediately made my stomach sink. When she sat down across from me, neither of us spoke for several seconds. We were two strangers connected by the same nightmare. Finally, Sarah opened the folder and slid a photograph across the table. My heart stopped. It was David, smiling, standing beside Sarah, his arm around her shoulders. Behind them was a Christmas tree. The photo looked recent, very recent. I stared at it so long that my vision blurred. How long? I whispered. Sarah swallowed hard. 5 years. I felt physically sick. 5 years. Not 5 weeks, not 5 months. 5 years. Half a decade of lies. Half a decade of deception so complete that neither of us knew the other existed. Sarah slowly pulled out more photographs. Family vacations, birthday parties, holiday dinners. In every single picture, David looked happy, comfortable, natural, like he belonged there. Then Sarah showed me a picture that completely shattered me. A little girl smiling at a birthday party. The same little girl from the card. Olivia, the child who called my husband Daddy. She's 6, Sarah said softly. I stared at the photo while my entire body went numb. 6 years old. Which meant David's affair hadn't happened during our marriage. It had become another marriage, another family, another life. Does she think he's her father? I asked. Sarah nodded. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Because he is. The world seemed to stop moving. I looked up slowly. What? Sarah began crying quietly. Olivia is David's daughter. For several seconds, I couldn't even process the sentence. My husband had a daughter. A 6-year-old daughter. A child he had hidden from me for her entire life. Every birthday, every Christmas, every school event, every scraped knee, every bedtime story. He had been living another existence while coming home to me and pretending everything was normal. I felt like I was listening to someone else's story, not my own. Sarah eventually wiped her eyes and continued. I didn't know about you either. I looked at her. She seemed genuine, broken, betrayed, just like me. What did he tell you? I asked. Sarah laughed bitterly. That he was divorced. Of course he did. She opened another section of the folder. Bank statements, hotel receipts, photos, text messages, plane tickets. 5 years of evidence. 5 years of carefully managed lies. As I flipped through the documents, a horrifying picture began forming. David wasn't occasionally seeing another woman. He had built an entire second life. He owned a small house 40 miles away under a business LLC. He spent nearly every business trip with Sarah and Olivia. The conferences, the meetings, the overnight travel I never questioned. It was all part of the lie. Every excuse suddenly made sense. Every late-night call. Every unexplained absence. Every missing holiday. Every moment I ignored because I trusted him. "How did you find out about me?" I asked. Sarah took a deep breath. "Last week, David left his laptop open." My stomach tightened. "And?" "A property tax statement arrived by email." She looked directly at me. "With your name on it." I closed my eyes. One careless mistake. After 5 years of deception, a single email had exposed everything. Sarah continued speaking. "At first I thought maybe you were a relative. Then I started searching." Her voice cracked. "Eventually I found your Facebook profile." The silence between us felt unbearable. Two women, one liar, one destroyed reality. Finally, Sarah reached across the table and placed a small envelope in front of me. "There's something else." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a recent photograph. David standing on a beach. Sarah beside him. Olivia between them. All three smiling. The date printed in the corner was from 2 months earlier. The same week David told me he was attending a sales conference in Denver. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I remembered that week clearly. He had called me every night telling me he missed me. He had sent me flowers. He had told me he loved me. Then he hung up the phone and played father on a beach vacation with his secret family. I finally understood something terrifying. The man I married didn't exist. Not really. The loving husband I believed in was just one role in a performance David had perfected. For 12 years, I loved a character, not a person. And sitting across from Sarah, surrounded by proof of his lies, I realized this nightmare was only beginning. Because David still had no idea that his two worlds had finally collided. The drive home felt surreal. Cars moved around me. Traffic lights changed from red to green. People walked dogs, carried groceries, laughed on sidewalks. The world looked exactly the same as it had 24 hours earlier, yet my entire reality had collapsed. I don't remember turning into my neighborhood. I don't remember parking the car. The only thing I remember is sitting in my driveway, gripping the steering wheel, while one question repeated itself over and over in my head. Who have I been married to for 12 years? When I finally entered the house, everything felt unfamiliar. The photos on the walls, the furniture we picked together, the wedding picture hanging above the fireplace. Suddenly, it all looked fake, like a movie set built around a lie. I walked directly to the wedding photograph and stared at it. There we were, smiling, young, hopeful. David's arm around my waist, my head resting against his shoulder. I remembered that day perfectly. The vows, the promises, the tears in his eyes when he said he loved me. Were those tears fake too? Had he always been capable of this? Or had he become this person later? I didn't know anymore. Around 6 o'clock, I heard David's car pull into the driveway. My heart immediately started pounding. Normally, I would have greeted him at the door. Normally, I would have asked about his day. Normally, I would have kissed him hello. But nothing was normal anymore. I remained seated in the living room while he walked inside carrying his briefcase. "Hey, Em," he called casually. "Traffic was terrible today." I looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time, I saw a stranger. David loosened his tie and smiled. "Everything okay?" I said nothing. His smile faded slightly. "Emma?" Slowly, I placed one photograph on the coffee table between us. The beach photo. The one with Sarah and Olivia. The color drained from his face instantly. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. Then David sat down very slowly. "Where did you get that?" The fact that he didn't deny it told me everything. "I met Sarah today." His eyes closed, just for a second, but I saw it. The realization. The understanding that his secret was finally dead. When he opened his eyes again, he looked exhausted. Not surprised, not angry, just exhausted. "Emma," he whispered. "Don't." My voice came out colder than I intended. "Don't say my name like we're having a normal conversation." David stared at the photograph. "I can explain." I laughed, actually laughed, a sharp, broken sound that didn't even sound like me. "You have a second wife and a 6-year-old daughter." I stood up. "What exactly are you planning to explain?" David rubbed his face with both hands. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "How was it supposed to happen?" I demanded. "Were you planning to tell me before or after Olivia graduated college?" Silence. His silence answered every question. I felt rage building inside me for the first time. Not sadness, not confusion. Rage. "Did you ever love me?" I asked. David looked up immediately. "Yes." "Don't lie to me." "I'm not lying." His voice cracked slightly. "I loved you." "Loved?" I repeated. "Past tense?" David lowered his head. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" He didn't answer, because there was no answer. Not one that made sense. Not one that justified 5 years of betrayal. I walked toward the dining room and grabbed another photograph from the folder Sarah had given me. Olivia blowing out birthday candles while David stood proudly behind her. "How many birthdays?" I asked quietly. David remained silent. "How many Christmas mornings?" Silence. "How many times did you kiss me goodbye and then go play husband somewhere else?" His shoulders slumped. "Emma." "Answer me!" I shouted. The sound echoed through the house. David finally looked up. Tears had appeared in his eyes. Real tears. Too late. Far too late. "Hundreds," he whispered. My chest tightened painfully. Hundreds. Hundreds of lies. Hundreds of choices. Hundreds of opportunities to stop. And he never did. Suddenly my phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. I looked down. It contained only one sentence. "I found something else." My stomach immediately sank. A second later, another message arrived. Then a photograph. I opened it. The blood drained from my face instantly. It was a hospital record. Olivia's birth certificate. Father's name, David Carter. Mother's name, Sarah Carter. Date issued, 6 years ago. My eyes moved lower, then lower again, until I saw the line that made my entire body go numb. Date of marriage, 7 years ago. I stared at the screen, once, twice, 3 times, hoping I had read it wrong. But the words remained exactly the same. 7 years ago. Which meant one horrifying thing. David hadn't just lied to Sarah. He hadn't just lied to me. He had legally married another woman while still married to me. I slowly lifted my head and looked directly at him. You married her? David's face turned white. Absolute white, and in that moment, before he even spoke a single word, I knew the answer. His silence had become the most honest thing about him. And I was about to discover that his second family wasn't even the worst secret he was hiding. I stared at the marriage certificate on my phone while the room seemed to tilt around me. 7 years ago. 7 years. That meant David had stood before another officiant, spoken another set of vows, signed another marriage license, and legally married Sarah while still married to me. My husband wasn't just a cheater, he was a criminal. Slowly, I lowered the phone and looked at him. Tell me the truth. David's face looked completely defeated now. Emma. No lies, no excuses, no half-truths. Tell me everything. For a long moment, he simply sat there staring at the floor. Then he finally spoke. I met Sarah during a conference in Minneapolis. I remained silent. At first, it was supposed to be temporary. He laughed bitterly at himself. That's what I told myself. Every sentence made me hate him more. Then she got pregnant. My stomach twisted. And instead of being honest, you created another life. David nodded slowly. Yes. The admission felt strangely anticlimactic. After so many lies, the truth sounded almost ordinary. Then I asked the question that mattered most. How did you marry her? David hesitated. She thought I was divorced. That doesn't answer the question. His eyes closed. I used a different county, different paperwork. Nobody checked carefully. My jaw tightened. The level of deception required for that made my skin crawl. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't passion. This was years of deliberate fraud. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Sarah. There's more. Call me. I immediately stepped outside onto the patio and called her. She answered on the first ring. Emma. Her voice sounded shaken. What happened? I asked. Sarah took a deep breath. I started looking through more documents after we met. A pause, then, David has debt. I frowned. How much? Silence. Over $800,000. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. What? Loans, credit lines, business investments. Some of them are overdue. My heart started racing. That's impossible. I thought so too. Sarah sounded terrified now. Emma, I think he's been using money from both households for years. Suddenly, everything clicked. The constant travel, the missing funds, the strange financial decisions, the stress, the secrecy. David wasn't just supporting two families, he was drowning financially while desperately trying to keep both worlds alive. There's another problem, Sarah whispered. His name appears on several companies I've never heard of. I felt a chill run through me. What kind of companies? Shell companies. My stomach dropped. The deeper we dug, the uglier everything became. Over the next week, Sarah and I worked together. It felt surreal. Two women who should have hated each other instead became allies against the same man. We shared bank records, emails, property documents, and tax filings. Piece by piece, David's empire of lies collapsed, and what we discovered shocked even our attorneys. David hadn't only been deceiving us emotionally. He had been moving money between accounts, hiding debt, using fraudulent business entities, and taking out loans against assets neither of us knew existed. His double life was built on financial quicksand. Eventually, the truth reached the authorities. Then his company. Then the banks. Everything unraveled at once. Investigations began. Accounts were frozen. Properties were reviewed. Friends disappeared. Business partners vanished overnight. The man who spent years controlling every detail of two separate lives suddenly couldn't control anything. 6 months later, David sat in a courtroom looking 20 years older than when I first confronted him. His hair had gone gray around the temples. The confidence was gone. The charm was gone. The illusion was gone. For the first time, he looked exactly like what he was, a man crushed beneath the weight of his own lies. Sarah sat beside me quietly during the proceedings. Neither of us spoke much anymore. We didn't need to. Shared betrayal creates a strange understanding. The judge finalized our divorce that afternoon. Just like that, 12 years of marriage ended with a signature. No dramatic speech, no grand revenge, just paperwork. Funny how something that once felt eternal can disappear so quietly. As we exited the courthouse, reporters waited outside. Cameras flashed, questions were shouted. Neither Sarah nor I stopped. We simply kept walking. David emerged several minutes later, alone. Completely alone. No friends, no colleagues, no family members. Nobody. For a brief second, our eyes met across the courthouse steps. He looked like he wanted to say something. Apologize, perhaps. Explain. Beg. I don't know. But I kept walking. Some conversations arrive years too late. A year later, my life looked completely different. I sold the old house and moved into a beautiful condo overlooking Lake Michigan. I started my own consulting business. I traveled. I reconnected with friends. I laughed again, really laughed. The kind of laughter that comes from peace rather than obligation. Sarah and I remained in touch occasionally, mostly because of Olivia. None of this was her fault. She was an innocent child caught inside an adult disaster. Every birthday card I sent her reminded me of something important. Children pay for the mistakes adults make. And they deserve better. One evening, nearly 2 years after everything collapsed, I stood on my balcony watching the sunset paint the lake gold and orange. My phone buzzed with a news alert. David had accepted a small accounting position in another state after years of legal and financial problems. I stared at the headline for a few seconds before setting the phone aside. Then I smiled. Not because I was happy he suffered. Not because revenge felt good. But because I felt nothing at all. And that was the real victory. People think the ending of a betrayal story is when the liar loses everything. They're wrong. The ending happens when the betrayed person stops carrying the weight of what happened. When the anger fades. When the questions disappear. When peace finally arrives. David spent years building 2 families. In the end, he lost both. I lost a husband. But I found myself. And looking back now, I know exactly which loss was greater. Sometimes the person who walks away broken becomes the strongest person in the story. And sometimes the best revenge is simply living a life so happy that the betrayal no longer matters.